And I'm Rukmini. I'm going to just thank you for inviting me, Gopi, and try to serve you here. Just turn this little this is a mini tambura. Turn this on and just say a few prayers. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshun Militam Yedi Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatadeshikarini Panchakapatarubhyascha Kripasindhu Bhaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Now here's a prayer. This is a prayer for all suffering people. A lot of suffering in the world going on right now today. Even more suffering in Maine and Israel, Palestine, Russia, Ukraine. I'm going to say it in English and then I'll say it in Sanskrit so you can get the vibration. May the entire universe be blessed with peace and good hope. May everyone driven by envy and enmity become pacified and reconciled. May all living beings develop abiding concern for the welfare of others. May our own hearts and minds be filled with purity and serenity. May all these blessings flow naturally from this supreme benediction. May our attention become spontaneously absorbed in the rapture of love unto the transcendent Lord. So I'm going to say it in Sanskrit now, just so you get the sense of the beautiful Sanskrit vibration. Swasyastu visvasya kalo prasiditam danyantu bhutani shivam mitodhya manascha badram bhajata dadhoksaje aveshatam no matirapya hoituki. It's an ancient prayer, 5,000 years old.
What? Who is it? It's really
It's actually spoken by Prahlad Maharaj, but that's kind of a...
Is it in the Bhagavatam?
It's in the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam, but that's a free translation. So thank you all for coming. And I wanted to just kind of talk or discuss tonight a little bit about the idea of being surprised. So you're Annabelle, you're completely surprised, right? So why did I want to talk about that? So sometimes you come here to Bhakti Yoga DC and maybe you're in a good mood and maybe you're looking forward to some energizing yoga or stretching it all out or something. Or maybe you just came here from work and maybe there's some kind of drama there, or from home and maybe you're kind of in a grumpy mood and maybe your partner's not really on board with what you're about, or maybe you just had a fight with someone at work. But when Gopi, or Prem's not here tonight, but when Gopi or Prem or somebody here greets you and is just really happy to see you and surprised to see you, your mood can just really shift so quickly. Have you noticed that? Your mood can just wow, somebody's happy to see me around here. It feels so good, right? So I just wanted to talk about that, being surprised, and get your thoughts as well. So it's
nicely surprised then, because the surprises aren't always nice.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So being surprised, being noticed, noticing somebody else, or maybe noticing Krishna or God's greatness in nature. It was a beautiful day today, right? We didn't expect to have such a lovely, it was so warm and sunny, and here we are almost in November, right? So being surprised is actually the beginning of opening our eyes and our hearts to what? To a sense of wonder, right? And Krishna's wonders are all around us. He says in the Bhagavad Gita that he's the light of the sun and the moon. He's the intelligence in human beings. He's the source of all spiritual and material worlds. And, Socrates said something nice, that he said that a sense of wonder is the beginning of wisdom. That's nice, right? And he said that, when someone looks up at the stars and ponders life and the source of life and the universe around us, that this is the beginning of wonder, and it's the beginning of knowledge. But I want to go back. I want to talk a little bit about Bhagavad Gita. Any of you familiar with Bhagavad Gita? Yeah, okay. So Bhagavad Gita starts, it's called the Song of God. 700 verses. It's a pretty short book, but it's called the Song of God. It's a discussion. Most of the spiritual books on the path of bhakti are discussions. They're question and answer. Because part of the bhakti philosophy is there's no point in instructing someone if they don't have a question, if they don't care, if their hearts aren't open to ask. So mostly it's a question and answer type of a thing. But the beginning of each, so there's 18 chapters in Bhagavad Gita, 700 verses, and each chapter is called a yoga of something. Yoga means to connect. So yoga is, the physical yoga that you're doing here at Bhakti Yoga DC, but it also means to connect our hearts to divinity, really. And so the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita has an interesting name. It's called Arjuna Vishada Yoga. So Arjuna is sort of the protagonist of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is a song of God. It's Krishna, the divine person, speaking to his devotee Arjuna. And the first chapter is called Arjuna Vishada Yoga, which means what? It means the yoga of Arjuna's depression or despondency. So how could that be a yoga? It's a yoga because in the midst of his despondency, he turns to a higher power. He turns to inquire. So that's how it turns into yoga. So in this first chapter, it's really interesting because in the first chapter, Krishna's just listening. Sometimes just listening is so helpful, right? Like a lot of times we just are so eager to, well, you know what you should do? And we want to tell our friends or the people we love, but sometimes it's just so much more powerful just to open our hearts to listen. So I want to listen to all of you tonight also, and stop talking and please interrupt me whenever you have a thought. But so in that first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is just listening. And he only speaks one time in the whole chapter, in the 25th verse, where he points out to Arjuna. So it's set on a battlefield. It's quite amazing. It's a book about yoga and spirituality set on a battlefield. And it kind of means to us that each one of us is on our personal battlefields each day, whether it's in the office, in the family, in the whatever, Krishna just speaks one time, pointing out to Arjuna, these are all the people on this battlefield that you're going to have to kill. So what are you going to do about it? And he's just listening, and Arjuna's just explaining his depression and his dilemma. And and then going to the back, the last chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, we see Sanjaya, this is really interesting because he's also listening to this conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, but he's mystically listening to it in his heart. He has what my teacher Prabhupada calls a television in his heart. He's sitting like miles away in the palace, and he's dictating this whole conversation between Krishna and Arjuna to this blind king whose sons are trying to defeat Arjuna. His kind of evil sons are on the other side of this battlefield. So this Sanjaya is mystically hearing the conversation and dictating it to this blind king who's called blind. He's spiritually and materially blind. This king, his name is Dhritarashtra. So he's blind physically, but he's also spiritually blind. So in the last chapter of Bhagavad Gita, so in the first, so look at the contrast here. Now you guys have to eat and listen at the same time, which is, it's kind of like rubbing your stomach and patting your head, right? Okay, so the beginning of the Gita is Arjuna's complete depression and despondency. And at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, this Sanjaya, who's mystically heard all of this, he's not even in the room or on the battlefield, what he's saying, he says to the blind king, he says, "O king, as I repeatedly recall this wondrous dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, I take pleasure being thrilled at every moment." And then in the next verse he says, "When I remember the wonderful form of Krishna, I'm struck with wonder more and more, and I rejoice again and again." So here's the spectrum, right? Arjuna's depression, despondency, and then the end of the Gita, someone hearing it is being thrilled at every moment and experiencing a sense of wonder at what he's heard, which is really interesting. So that's what I'm thinking about. That's what I'd like to talk about. That, to think about that spectrum. So what do you think? I almost feel like we could pause and just think, well, where am I on that spectrum right now? As I walk down the streets of DC, you're expressing some tension with family, am I at square one or two, or, do I sometimes open up to some kind of sense of wonder during the day? Are there little openings in the clouds when I can sense a sense of wonder? So Arjuna in the beginning, he represents the everyman. He represents us. He's like us. He's troubled by the problems of life. I got this problem. I got that problem. He's probably faced with bigger problems on that battlefield than anyone in this room has ever had to face. He's being asked to destroy his whole family in this war. And it's a horrible situation. But then in the later chapters, after Krishna speaks these divine words and transforms Arjuna's heart, Arjuna gets awakened from this kind of despondency, and he's ready to act as an instrument of Krishna on this battlefield. So then let's look at Sanjaya again. So he's the one who's got the television in his heart. He's off the battlefield. He's in the palace somewhere speaking to this blind king who's not understanding anything. He's not really hearing it, right? So you got Sanjaya. He's speaking to this blind king, spiritually and materially blind, and his heart does not get transformed. So, any of you teach at all, or, you have to maybe share a workshop at work or something like that, and you're sitting in front of a group of people who are just totally not getting it, maybe they're falling asleep, or maybe their ear holes are closed or whatever. So Sanjaya is talking to somebody like that, and he's experiencing this sense of wonder and being thrilled at Sanjaya, being thrilled at every moment, but this Dhritarashtra is totally not getting it. So why is he not getting it? Because his heart is covered by a selfish ambition for his own sons. He just wants his evil sons. They're not the good guys in this battle. They're not righteous. And they just want political power for their own aggrandizement. And this king just wants power for his own sons. And therefore, because his heart is covered with this kind of dirt, he can't really hear the spiritual instructions, right? He's just all ambitious for his sons to defeat these actually righteous Pandavas, who are the rightful heirs to the throne. So, hearing the whole Bhagavad Gita, this Sanjaya is thrilled, he's struck with wonder, and his heart is just being filled with love. But in a sense, you could say that Sanjaya failed, right? He's speaking these words to this king. In a sense, he sort of failed because his words didn't change this blind king's determination at all to see his evil sons usurp the kingdom. So you ever think about that? Sometimes we also fail.
Sometimes.
A lot, you might sometimes fail to touch the hearts of your kids or your partner or someone you love, or maybe you're speaking something and people just they don't get it or whatever, So, but what's so beautiful here is Sanjaya is speaking, and he's being thrilled with this sense of wonder, and he's sharing it without attachment to this result of having this guy get it. You know, the hearer is not getting it, and the speaker is being thrilled. So that's pretty interesting. There's a character in the epic of the Ramayana. His name is Jatayu. He's a vulture. And any of you familiar with the Ramayana at all? So when Sita got kidnapped by the evil Ravana, it's a long story. We could spend a whole week actually unpacking it. But Sita, Ram's beautiful wife, was captured by this evil Ravana. And this vulture bird tried to get her back. He was a friend of Ram's. And he saw Ravana kidnapping her, and he was like flapping. He was a gigantic vulture type of a bird. And he was trying to get Sita away from Ravana. And Ravana was so much stronger and more powerful than this vulture bird that he just kind of like slashed him up, slashed his wings off. And this Jatayu died trying to save Sita from getting kidnapped. But it's a really interesting thing because it's considered that even though he died trying, he failed in a sense. He was successful because he gave his heart to try for something righteous and good. And then Ram and his brother Lakshman came and performed the funeral rites of this saintly vulture bird. So so sometimes we fail. My teacher Prabhupada, he came to the U.S. and he was prepared to fail. He's the one who brought this whole bhakti practice from India in 1965. And once somebody asked him why he decided to come to New York, and he had a funny answer. He said because he thought that his godbrothers went to London and Germany and they failed there, and so he thought if he was going to fail, he would go somewhere else and fail there. That was his answer. And he came on a boat, like a cargo ship. Like right now, like when you go to India, it takes a few hours, like 14, 18, 20 hours. It took him 39 days on this cargo ship, and he had seasickness and 2 heart attacks. And anyway, so the boat docked at Boston for a few hours and then went on to New York. So he wrote this beautiful poem in Boston Harbor. And so he was praying to Krishna, and he said, somehow or other, O Lord, you have brought me here to speak about you. Now, my Lord, it is up to you to make me a success or failure as you like. But he's in this very helpless condition, and he was feeling joy, thinking of how people would become happy by hearing this beautiful message of Krishna. And so that's a question I have, like, how do we access that kind of a thrill that Sanjaya was experiencing, or that joy that, here's Prabhupada, after 39 days, 2 heart attacks and seasickness, and, he's thinking of the joy that people are going to feel by hearing this beautiful bhakti. So, how do we access that joy, that sense of wonder, even amidst failure, helplessness, or even death like Jatayu? Let me say a few more words, and then I want to hear your thoughts too. So, one thought is that joy comes from a grateful heart. Joy comes from a grateful heart. If we can just be grateful for one tiny, tiny thing in this day, then some joy can spring out of our hearts. And that sense of wonder is an appreciation of the gifts that are all around us. We could say Krishna's gifts, but maybe if you don't even know anything about Krishna, but there are gifts all around us, like, wow, all day today there was sunshine, And there were a lot of people also killed today, or yesterday. And, but so even amidst the suffering, there's, we can see little eddies in the other direction to be grateful and experience some joy. I was thinking when we're proud, we're ignoring the things to be grateful for. It's like ignorance is ignoring, right? We're like asleep to the wonders and the surprises that are all around us. I wanted to share this one thing that's a little further down here. That there's this beautiful thing, like okay, so today, yesterday, there's so much pain, there's so much war, right? And there's this beautiful, it's kind of like a riff, like that verse I read is kind of like a free translation of something in the Bhagavatam. But here's something that's kind of a riff from the Jewish Talmud. It says, do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Walk humbly now. Love mercy now. Do justice now. You are not obligated to complete the work, neither are you free to abandon it.
Who wrote that?
It's like a riff from the ancient Jewish Talmud.
Can you send that to me?
Yeah, I can send it to you.
And I'll send it
but
on WhatsApp.
But it's very beautiful. It's like, well, what's the point of even trying? There's so much suffering and so much hate. What's the point of even trying? But like, yes, begin it, try, do your part, and you will not complete the work, but you're also not free to abandon it. Love mercy, do justice, walk humbly. I just love that quote. So I think that really resonates with me today after hearing about Maine, after hearing about Israel, Palestine, war and more, Russia, Ukraine, right? But if we're proud, then that joy can't access our hearts. Somebody named Charles Morgan Langbridge said that there's no surprise more magical than the surprise of being loved. There's no surprise more magical than the surprise of being loved. So if we can wake up to the aliveness of Krishna's love by any name, you could say Krishna, you could say God, you could say any name you like, but that love that's all around us, that's gifted to us. I don't make my own breath, I don't make my own water, I don't make my own food, right? Did any of us? I mean, you cooked it, but did we supply the vegetables and the spinach and the that if we have our eyes open, sometimes I feel like I'm just sleepwalking through my life, just on automatic pilot, like kind of, how adults are so bored. We're just so, I saw that a million times, I did that, I saw that. And kids can be so fascinated by just like a bug, or like crumpling autumn leaves with their boot, or like smashing ice in the winter in a mud puddle. They can just be so fascinated by like a spider web, But we get this jaded adult thing, and we just turn it off, and we walk around like zombies, and that's why that jaded, entitled. Sometimes I wonder, is it just the Americans are like this, or is everybody so entitled? It's like a cancer that's in our hearts, So what do you guys think? What do you guys think of this?
I was thinking before you read that poem or that little thing, which was the answer to what I was thinking, it's so challenging to be grateful, gratitude. I've been playing with this sense of gratitude to what it really means without bypassing the pain that is present in the world, or somebody else's suffering, and sugarcoating even my own reality of things are, yes, gratitude is a gift. What that looks like, what that truly is to me is like, I'm still trying to unpack that, but that's why I was like, whoa, that was the answer to my question. But it's so easy to not take responsibility to the suffering or the pain around us when we are like, I don't want to say sugarcoating with gratitude, but yes.
I get what you're saying, because sometimes we can just turn it off and think, oh, that's such a Pollyanna attitude, gratefulness, I heard it a million times. Right? But if we can actually just wake up to the aliveness that's all around us, that's within me, if I choose to pay attention.
But I guess what I'm thinking of when you just say that, waking up, it's waking up to the pain and to the joys.
Yeah.
It's feeling, and from the joy of the moments that you do have that you're grateful for, to me, it would make one to give back if they're also awake to the pain that's always around them as well.
Yeah.
But it's not a nullification, it's a giving back and of service, and always a vessel, even in our own pain, of being there. But I guess I fumble with that because I love the idea of gratitude, and I'm like, I just need to kind of overcome my crazy mind with gratitude.
Yeah.
Which is true, but yet at the same time, I don't want to bypass stuff. So it's
Yeah.
just,
It's interesting because I think if we think about gratitude or compassion, there's an element of self-compassion, but one element of it is also that suffering is a shared human experience. So I can be there with you, like right now, I'm not in Gaza, right? Or I'm not in Lewiston, Maine, but I can just, take a deep breath and share a heart of compassion.
All right, I'm ignorant. Can someone tell me what happened in Maine?
Yeah, 18 people. At last count, I think 18 people were killed. And
was it a shooting?
Yeah. It was.
And 50 to 60 injured or something like that.
Yeah, and that's my niece has a little farm up there, and the schools were closed. It's right near where she is. But so to compassion and recognize that shared human experience of suffering, and try to be there in whatever way we can, in prayer, in empathy, and in whatever way we can. What does this bring up for you guys? What else is this bringing up?
I've been thinking about the concept of curiosity and wonder and awe, and I really like how you opened that, and even talking about the Gita, the two sides of it, because I almost have found that even recently that it's been the states of curiosity, wonder, and awe that then have brought me into that state of gratitude and gratefulness.
Exactly.
Without even
That's beautiful.
trying.
Yes,
And I'm just
exactly. Right.
Wow.
It's like
Cool.
a waking up.
Yeah.
As opposed to sleepwalking. I think it's a waking up as opposed to sleepwalking. Yeah. In Sanskrit, there's a word for surprise, or amazement, which is this word chamatkar. It means amazement. And that's the beginning of love and relationship, when we can actually stop for a second. I mean, think about it. Maybe you have a partner, maybe you have kids, maybe you have family, maybe you're dealing with human beings at work, or, and it's to wake up to the sense of wonder of the gifts that are around us. It's a different state of being. I want to share something.
May I jump in?
Yeah, please.
I'm right now learning compassion and self-compassion, because I noticed that when we walk around, our brain, we're in the era of perfectionism. And when
We're what?
In the era of perfectionism.
Yes,
So-
it's a big problem. Nobody can be normal. We all have to be above average. We
Yeah.
have to be very perfect, right?
So I noticed that the brain can beat you up for anything. So I've been learning how to turn my thoughts around and turn them into more compassionate form. But I brought this up because Ram Dass, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Ram Dass. When I think about war, I noticed that I kind of sugarcoat it, because as Ram Dass said, you have to have misery and suffering to have peace and love. So when I see that, I look at it, but then I focus more on the peace and love aspect of it, that there must be a balance, and this is how life is supposed to be. But I noticed that that's not showing any compassion when it comes to people who are in war. So it kind of woke up something within my heart, and saying that, there is war, and this is our reality, and it's something that we shouldn't just bypass, but actually have compassion for.
Sometimes I think that if we didn't have pain, that we would just be all la-di-da, just going through life on automatic pilot. But my teacher Prabhupada calls the pains of this world, he calls them pinpricks. You're just going on, everything's fine, no problem, and then just you're just a little slap or a little pinprick, and it just wakes you up. Wait a minute, I'm on a temporary journey here. I'm only going to be here for 60, 70, 80 years or something, and then what? So I have to be introspective to think more deeply. What else? Anybody else have thoughts on this, on curiosity, or the importance of pain and being cognizant of, just like you're saying, that dichotomy between pain and happiness, and does it wake us up?
I think pain can make us remember of the things that we can appreciate.
Exactly.
Because we tend to forget. Like in my experience, when I'm from Puerto Rico and we had the Hurricane Maria, and then there was a time where we didn't think that we would be like with no electricity, no water, no like things that you take for granted.
You take
every
for
day.
granted,
And I
right?
remember when we got that back, it was like, wow, like I'm so thankful because I have electricity, like I can like this, like I have electricity, I have water, like flushing the toilet, yeah, like different things that it's like, with that experience, I learned to appreciate, but then time passed by and then you like kind of forget.
Exactly.
So it's like,
And 60% of the world is in that position. That's
Yeah.
the funny part. 70% of the world.
Yeah. And it's also,
and then you have it and you forget that.
Yeah, we
you
forget.
are lucky or.
but it's interesting because it's almost like counterintuitive, because we, here in Western countries, the U.S., we have so much, but sometimes people who have so little are so much more appreciative. Like you just said, like, wow, water coming out of a tap in my own house, a toilet that flushes.
You take it for granted.
We just take it for granted, but people like I know you're reading The Journey Home, Radha Swami's book, a highly recommended book. And when he went to Afghanistan, he kind of had a culture shock because the people there at that time were so grateful and so generous. Like they had nothing, but they were so eager to share a little cup of tea with him, a stranger. And he was like, wait a minute, what about the American dream? What about everything I've been raised with, affluence, right? It's like, we think about COVID and infections and influenza and all this kind of stuff, but there's this other disease that has really got us all by the throat, which is affluenza. We're so affluent, right? We got so much, and it just puts us to sleep. You think, oh yeah, turn on the tap. I can let it run for a while. I'm going to go run around the block. The tap's run, whatever. We don't appreciate.
So how do you change? I mean, I'm thinking even children, like, this is something I'm trying to do, and it's impossible in the society we live with my daughter, is to bring in, she's so privileged, and I'm glad she's privileged, because I'd hate her to have the pain and the not privileged lives that I didn't have, and the struggles. Yet I want her to have the appreciation and gratitude for her privilege.
Yeah,
So
that's
I mean,
beautiful.
it's like, that's, I might say, for a child, because it's very challenging when they feel like, they take all these things for granted.
Right.
They're so privileged. But I think our minds are like children minds, actually, in its dormant state. I'm
Yeah,
wondering if
like-
you got any advice on.
Yeah, I do. When we had our stores, there was this one little girl. Her mother used to take her out on Thanksgiving, and she used to take her out and feed the poor every year, which you can do too. You can go down to a shelter in this neighborhood, or you can go down anywhere, or you can do it even here, and have your daughter feed some people who do not have the affluence that we have, And this little girl, it was amazing because she used to go to shelters. Her mother used to bring her, and she used to, share food with people. She raised her like that. And then she used to come to our store at Christmas time, and she would stand in the door with a basket of cookies. We'd give her a basket of cookies. And this little child was just so heart-opened because of that experience of seeing the spectrum, the difference between her life and the lives of other people. She could see it, and she got it viscerally. So that's, I think, a really good bit of advice for anybody who's, dealing with little ones. Take them out to see and personally share and see, as the Christians say, there but for the grace of God go I, Here's a really nice quote from someone I love named Michael Beckwith. He says, Michael Beckwith? You would like him. African American, I think he's from Chicago, very beautiful man. He says, gratitude places you in the energy field of plenitude. Perceiving life in a consciousness of gratitude is literally stepping into another dimension of living. Suddenly, the seeming ordinariness of your days takes on a divine sparkle. And then this, this sense of wonder and joy and surprise, how, that wonder can just begin to dawn on us more and more. What else? What is this bringing up for any of you, Jack?
Yeah, well, also this came up earlier, but this reminds me of it, that I feel like, and especially with what Gopi, what you were talking about, I feel like gratitude equips me to be able to hold the suffering and the pain of the world. And if I didn't have the gratitude, I could try, but it would rip me up, and I wouldn't be able to continue doing what I'm here to do as a being. And I think there's a certain, I know I spent a part of my life in sort of this masochistic experience of, well, if there's suffering in the world, then I need to have it destroy my life in some way, and not in a way to sort of mirror it or to feel like there's no other way to make it valid. And
I have to die along with those who are...
right. And I don't think that's, I've come to see at least, that I don't think that's the best way to do it, at least not for me, because then I'm not able to go out and offer compassion to people. And it's when I have the gratitude as my, like on my back, like a backpack, that I can meet everyone exactly where they are.
Yeah, that's really, really wise. I think a lot of people that are in, social justice fields and caring fields, there's such a high degree of burnout. Maybe you're all really aware of that, And that's why it's so important to have your own spiritual practice, which is what we're learning at a place like Bhakti Yoga DC. Because if we're not feeding our own selves, and if we're not nourishing our own selves, then we are coming from a place of poverty, and we can't have nothing to give. We're running on empty. So that's why we have to each day be nourishing ourselves just like we eat good, nutritious food. We have to also nourish ourselves with a spiritual practice of your choice. It can look like whatever resonates with you. It can be chanting Hare Krishna, doing mantra on beads, or whatever resonates with you. But we have to put in, otherwise it does become that masochistic, I might as well just die, because otherwise there's too much suffering and there's too much sadness in this world.
Yeah, like continuing the idea is, like you said, like gratitude elevates our energy, our frequency, and that way we can also give something to the collective conscience. And like if you put your part on that, I believe it's like focusing on abundance, like everything rising up and connecting it in that way, like the world, it makes a difference, I think, overall in the world. And I think that gratitude is the antidote to when you complain.
Yeah.
I think when
it's
you feel that you want to complain, it's like, how can I shift this to gratitude?
Exactly.
For me, it's a way to try to elevate that vibration. Feel better and make others around you feel better.
Yeah, and JL and I were talking before this Sangha started that, there's so much pollution in the sound vibration of this world, like here, especially here in DC or everywhere, but in DC there's a lot of it, There's a lot of politicians telling lies. There's a lot of lawyers in courts telling lies. There's a lot of people in business, like trying to get more and cheat and tell lies. And so what happens is sound travels in the ether, and the ether becomes contaminated with all these heavy lies. So putting out a spiritual vibration in kirtan like you do here, or like during COVID, you guys were going out onto the mall and just sitting on the grass and chanting and doing kirtan. So the more we can put out a holy vibration, it counteracts the contamination of all the lying that's going on. It's world changing, and sometimes we think, well, how could that really do anything? But it's on a subtle level that is sort of beyond our consciousness.
I think as well, I just want to add to this, like, I was just thinking of what you said, Alison, it's like, adding to that is, because there are days I know that I just can't go above the line. I'm just very depressed. I suffer from a level of depression. My lifestyle helps me go above the line. Sometimes I might hit below the line, and sometimes it's for a long period, and I have to reassess and reevaluate. And I try and find the gratitude to pull me out. And I think the power, that's even one step above, right? Because when that cloud's there, it's so heavy.
Exactly, it's like the black hole.
It's like the black hole. It's
Yeah.
all consuming. But I do say Sangha, and like you were saying, Kirtan, chanting together, sacred sound, or Sangha, and a regular practice. So every morning I'll just still wake up because I have a discipline, and I do my practice, I do my karma. Happy days, cloudy days. And I feel like between those two, my Sangha, of this and showing up for people in service, showing up in attitude of service, of like, no, an act of gratitude is even when you don't feel like it, you show up and you serve. You show up for your Sangha, you show up for your sadhana. And that's like sometimes like a safety net that I'm unable to get out of that cloud. And therefore I show up for my service, and it's my Sangha, my community, that is able to give me the, a kind of kick up
Grounding.
a grounding, a kick up,
beautiful.
whatever. Like they pull me out of my mind matter,
Yeah.
and I realize this is my dharma.
Yeah.
And if you're actually in your dharma, then it can pull you out of that complacency.
Yeah.
It can pull you out of that mindset and that cloud, because you are in the right dharma, or people around, like the Sangha here, or chanting, or the regular sadhana. So I think it's like, it's
Tell
really
Annabelle what sadhana means.
Sadhana is like a practice, a spiritual practice. So to meditate every day, to carve out 20 minutes, an hour, whatever it is, of some time basically where you're spiritually investing in your spiritual practice, in your spiritual path, in your quest to divinity, and your heart opening to divinity, to receive grace, to give it up to grace. And some days even that gets cloudy, but you still just show up and you sit, even though your mind's going crazy, you still just sit. You just sit and you're showing up. I come in and I teach and I'm still of service. It's not because I have to pay the bills or this or that. Yes, I have to do those things, but bigger than that is, this is my karma, this is my calling, this is my service. And then coming here with you guys.
You know what I love about what Gopi's saying? So she's saying she has kids, right? And so what I'm hearing her say is, it's kind of like an attitude of mothering the world. Like, you know, when you have kids, you don't think, okay, I'm tired of you guys today. Just, you know, just go out in the street. I'll give you $50 and, you know, good luck.
Try to survive.
Yeah, good luck. You know, hope it works out for you.
Come back tomorrow.
Come back tomorrow, you know, let me know how it went. It doesn't work like that. It's about showing up and offering love, offering some, you know, some paying it forward, right? So
I guess even when you don't feel like it, that's
when
the
you don't
point.
feel
Then
like
it pulls
it,
you out.
you know, your daughter's going to be there whether you feel like it or not. You know,
And it pulls you out of that.
it pulls you up because you know you gotta you know, show her how to love, and that this is a world of suffering, and what can we do to alleviate that suffering. So I want to share with you something that I was recently in London, and there's this beautiful manor house outside of London that George Harrison donated to the devotees there. You grew up there running around that property. So she was like one of the naughty kids, like talking about mothering, you know. They're all like trying to mother this wild kid. So, yeah. And so they have a sign on the wall, like in the hallway when you're going from the temple room to where the shoes are. They have this sign on the wall that says, I really liked it. It says, "Live in gratitude, give in compassion." Live in gratitude, give in compassion. And I was just walking by the sign every day, and it just made such an impression on me because, so they also have something there that they call the School of Bhakti. You know that? They have at the manor, they have a School of Bhakti. And so I was thinking, well, what is actually the School of Bhakti? The School of Bhakti, Bhakti Yoga, this is the yoga of linking with God in devotion, right? But the School of Bhakti is actually the School of Gratitude. The School of Bhakti is actually the School of Gratitude. And then I was thinking, well, what are the degrees? Like when you go to school, you get a degree, right? So what are the degrees that you get in the School of Bhakti? You get like different degrees of aliveness. You wake up. And when we begin to wake up, we begin to appreciate, and we begin to be surprised And we try to live an awakened life with a more conscious sense of wonder. That's the degrees we get in the school of bhakti, degrees of aliveness. And to be conscious of this sense of wonder and to be able to live in an amazement, like a little child, like, wow, here is a bug, here is a rug. You know, look at this rug. Is that amazing? You know, and just appreciate. You know, so yeah.
I guess I wanted to add this earlier. So, like, I feel like connected with everything that everyone said. There's like the concept of like there's no light without dark. Basically.
Say it again.
There's no light without dark.
Yeah.
And so like I feel like when I experienced kind of like my first, what I consider to be like my first real bout of depression, that was tough for sure.
Yeah.
And then I feel like I came out of it. And it took me years after that to kind of realize this. But what I realized was I couldn't like see the happy things unless I had experienced that. I kind of felt like it was kind of the opposite of what you were saying.
Yeah, that contrast.
Mm-hmm. And it was not like the same concept, but like I became the opposite way. And so so then I realized like when I started gratitude journaling, I was like, oh, this is like almost feels so silly how easy it becomes when I keep on doing it. To the point where I feel like the silliest thing that I wrote in my gratitude journal, like it just kept on like they just kept on coming out, right? Like I had to run back to my journal to like I was like, oh, I thought of one more thing. Like I feel like the silliest thing that I wrote was like, oh, like I dropped a magazine on the floor on accident, and like the slap that it made was so satisfying. And I like wrote that in my gratitude, and I ran back to my journal to write that. I was like,
that's like being conscious, you know?
Yeah.
That's like you're being, instead of being asleep, you're being conscious, you know?
But I had to go through the
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah.
I feel like I've been I use depression as a gift, and I say that I've been gifted with depression since a kid because I watched my parents grow up that way, and I feel like because I've been gifted with it, I saw, as you said, you need dark to have light, and Ram Das again, he says and this too shall pass. So this dark cloud is a cloud that's going to pass, just like the weather. Just as the sun comes out, it rains, it snows. Dark clouds have to come out. But I feel like I love the idea of depression because it helped me always sit in my inner child mode. And that's why I have a YouTube channel. But this is what I teach adults, that our inner child never leaves us. That inner kid is always still within us. And whenever we're sad, we're not sad adults. We're sad kids at that moment. So surrendering to Krishna and to the process and going fully within and talking to that kid within yourself and saying, hey, what's wrong? Because sometimes we don't have parents to ask us what's wrong. So going within and saying, hey, what's wrong? You can talk to me. I'm here for you always. Just giving that child compassion and nurturing shows that it's okay to, even though we say we're adults, we're just growing kids, and it's okay to always go back to that childlike mode to put happiness into your life, because kids don't stay sad for too long, probably like for a split second, and then they forgot why they're even sad.
Right,
you know?
Right. That's a really nice point. So like being able to give yourself a little hug, you know, and recognize that like you're actually talking also about like being an observer, like zooming out and observing, being able to give myself a little hug, that it's all right. And I think one other nice point to add is that suffering is a shared human experience, that I'm suffering now, and there are people all around this world suffering. So to just be able to pause and be with that suffering within myself, self-compassion, and then the suffering of other people around me. And then just that, some people would say mindfulness, but I think on the path of bhakti we would say heartfulness, to go to the place of the heart, because the heart is deeper than the mind. Share a story with you that I heard from a beautiful Buddhist teacher, Tara Brach. She teaches in this area. So she told this story about one of her Buddhist colleagues was with one of his students who was dying of a very painful cancer. And he was in so much pain. And the Buddhist teacher was saying to him, just go to the place of mindfulness. He kept repeating, go to the place of mindfulness. And this man was in so much pain. And finally he said to his teacher, the mindfulness is just not working. And then the teacher, and she told this story, this is very beautiful. The teacher said, then you have to go to the place of heartfulness, which goes down. That's the real self. So we have to, through the path of bhakti, we have to access that place of heartfulness. Here's something that's very nice about being surprised. Let's see. Being surprised is like a little seed of gratitude that opens the door to the little glimpses of moments of more surprise and joy. We can try to expect less from others and appreciate more ourselves. Expect nothing and live frugally on surprise. Live frugally on surprise. So here's something nice about Socrates. Great Socrates, right? He was very frugal, and he never liked to spend money on anything. But he did like to go to the marketplace a lot and look around. And his students were just like wondering, why is he doing this? And so they asked him, well, why do you like to go to the market? You never buy anything. And he said, I just like to see all the things that I don't need. So it's such a beautiful thing, expect less, appreciate more, and live frugally on surprise. So then here's this Sanjaya, right? He's in this palace room, and at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, he's appreciating through the television of his heart. He's in ecstasy, thrilled at every moment. And, they say that in Krishna's village, in the spiritual world where Krishna lives with all his associates, they have all these beautiful pastimes, Krishna's play, called pastimes. And every time there's some kind of play, every time it happens, it's like they never saw it before. It's like every single time. It happens again and again and again. But every time it's like it's the first time. So that's kind of a way of seeing also. Just seeing everything, like even if I saw it 100 times, to be able to appreciate it as though I never saw it before. I think that's really beautiful also. So this awakened grateful consciousness of being continually surprised on the path of bhakti, to be aware of the treasures that we're gifted with. And, there's something beautiful in the Bible that says that, it's in the book of Psalms that says, a grateful heart sits at a continuous feast. Isn't that beautiful? A grateful heart sits at a continuous feast. So, wow, what a surprise, right? A festival at every moment. And that's the appreciative, grateful life, that Krishna is so kindly inviting us into this world of to come and play with him in his own personal pastimes of loving exchanges. So, yeah, this is what I'm thinking about, that we can try to keep our eyes open for those moments of surprise, to show a little appreciation to Krishna or the other people in our lives and express our gratitude. Sometimes it just makes such a difference. It can change the whole trajectory of someone's day, but even their life, when we can take a moment to appreciate. Like maybe there's something you appreciated about something someone did in your life, in your work, in your somewhere, and you just never really mentioned it to them. But when you mention it, it can maybe that person was really in a painful depression, and that one word from you that you just kind of thought about, but you never really thought to share, can just change. Sometimes it can save a life, actually. Someone's really on the brink, and just a little word from your heartfulness expressed, right, can actually save a life and give someone a whole new direction. So, in moments of surprise, we can get a little glimpse of the joy to which gratefulness just opens the door. And I want to just end this with this nice thing from Einstein, Albert Einstein. He said, never lose a holy curiosity. Yeah. So what do you guys think? Some final thoughts? Thank you for your beautiful hearts of appreciation.
How did our newcomers like it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah, we can try to be helpers in the world, like through social work or whatever you're doing. You know, some of you are in helping professions. Even if you work in government, that's helping the world also. You know, but we have to nurture ourselves also. Otherwise, we can be like we're on the cross, and I just gotta, you know, out of mercy, I just gotta kill myself with masochism. But when we're feeding ourselves with a spiritual practice, then we can be whole, nurtured people. You know, to be able to give to self-compassion, but also compassion to others. You know, is it helpful?
Yeah, I saw the topic tonight was surprise, and my mind went to like the negative aspect of surprise, like being caught off guard. So I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. Yeah, so sometimes we can be pleasantly surprised, sometimes we can be unpleasantly surprised. But I think in those moments of being unpleasantly surprised, maybe that's the time also to pause and to, you know, zoom out, right? And get the big picture, that, you know, I have a limited time here. I have to use those moments of my life to for self-compassion and to give greater compassion and make my little, even though it's a world of so much suffering, make my little eddies in the other direction of compassion, you know? And then you said something that was beautiful. It reminded me of this. You know, they say that the rising tide lifts all ships. Have you heard that before?
Yeah.
So like, you know, we might be thinking, well, what is my little bit going to even do? Does it even matter? Does anybody care? But like if I can uplift myself or the few people in my life, or like in this yoga studio, you know, it's world changing. It actually can change the world. So thank you all so much. This is really beautiful.
Yay! Thank you so much, Rukmini.
Yeah,
I would like to just say, next week is, what date is it?
Saturday, Kirtan.
We have Kirtan on Saturday next week. The second